Hey everyone. Okay, we are up to lesson 57, and this lesson and the next one are both about active and passive voices of verbs and contrasting the two. Now, passive voice, you probably know, basically means when the thing that you're describing is not. The person or thing you're describing is not the one doing the action. So, for example, a sentence like, somebody opened the door, that's an active sentence because somebody did the thing, somebody opened the door. By contrast, you could also say the door was opened by somebody, and that's a passive voice. The door, you're making the door basically the focus of the sentence by starting off with the door, but the door didn't do anything. Something was done to the door, so that's passive voice. And in English, usually you just use certain keywords to indicate whether passive voice is happening in the present or the past or the future. So, for example, the door is being opened means it's happening right now. The door was opened means obviously past tense, and then future tense would be the door will be opened. But other languages do it a bit differently, and we'll see Russian does things in its own way, which is not quite like the English way. So here's an example right off the top. Я пишу письмо. I write a letter. You can also say письмо пишется мной. Now this suffix here, sia, this is widely used in Russian to indicate reflexive verbs. Like if you do something to yourself, often the verb you use will have a sia on the end, indicating that it's a so-called reflexive verb, meaning the subject of the verb is doing that action to itself. But in Russian, it's also used, the suffix sia is also used to indicate, as you can see, passive. So письмо пишется мной means the letter is being written through me or by me. So mной here is actually, if I'm not mistaken, that's the instrumental case. Because remember, the instrumental case is something you don't see that often in Russian, but the instrumental case indicates the object through which something is being done. So, for example, if you write with a I think if you write with a pencil, so pencil in Russian is карандаш, so you can say я пишу карандашом, meaning I write by means of the pencil. I write through the facility of the pencil, and that's how it's being done. And there's another phrase here, осторожно, двери закрываются, which is an everyday sound in big Russian cities. You'll find out why soon. I think that's covered later in the lesson, but that's a phrase that you need to get used to hearing if you live in Russia, believe me. Okay, we'll go ahead and start off with the first dialogue as usual.
У меня файл не открывается.
Закрой компьютер, перезагрузи его. Смотри, сейчас он перезагрузится, и потом открой файл.
Как это сложно делается?
Это не сложно, просто надо уметь работать на компьютере.
Тебе не сложно, а у меня не получается научиться.
Хочешь, я тебя научу пользоваться этой программой?
Конечно, хочу. Спасибо тебе.
Okay, so pretty short dialogue. So the woman using her computer, I think the dialogue is started by the red-headed woman sitting at the desk, and then the other woman is obviously this blonde woman standing here. So the woman using the computer says,
У меня файл не открывается.
so she uses the word открывается. So открывает means open, and открывается means something like, well, it could mean open itself, but in the passive voice, this means something more like my file is not being opened. My file will not become open, because really, the file doesn't open itself. The computer opens the file. Well, depending on your perspective, you can say the user opens the file or the computer opens the file. I guess either one works, but the file doesn't really open itself, does it? So here we're not saying the file opens itself, but rather the file is not being opened, or the file will not become opened or get opened by whomever or whatever is trying to open it. So in English, you'd say my file won't open or my file doesn't open, but Russian more descriptively uses the passive voice to indicate that the file is not passively getting opened by something that's trying to open it or someone that's trying to open it.
Закрой компьютер, перезагрузи его.
So, закрой компьютер. Закрой means to close, but in this case, in Russian, закрой also means to turn off, computers and televisions and appliances like that. So she's saying close the computer, meaning, I guess, turn off the computer. And then перезагрузи его, restart it or restart him because computer is masculine. So restart him, restart the computer.
Смотри, сейчас он перезагрузится, и потом открой файл.
Okay, so the word that she said there, смотри, сейчас он перезагрузится. So, смотри means look, like, hey, look at that. Сейчас он, now he, again, because computer is masculine, so now he, or it, перезагрузится. So this is an interesting verb because, again, like I said, sia is both reflexive and passive. So you could say the computer is restarting itself, or you could say the computer is being restarted, passive voice. Either one works, actually. Either interpretation could be seen as correct. И потом открой файл. And after that, open the file. Telling, this is imperative, saying open the file.
Как это сложно делается?
So this means something like how difficult it is to do. Now, I think we've seen in the past the more general word trudno for something difficult. I think usually if you say that something is difficult, you would say it's trudno. But here we see the interesting word sложно, which basically means the same thing. And you know what? I'm actually going to go and quickly head to Wiktionary and just take a look at how Wiktionary describes this word, because сложно and трудно are basically both words for difficult, but they're not quite synonyms. Yeah, so it is complicated. So it's more like, I think trudno would be used if you're trying to lift something very heavy. That's not something complicated. It's not mentally or conceptually complicated or difficult to understand the concept. It's just it's a lot of work and you might not be strong enough. So lifting something heavy or doing something that's difficult in that sense is trudno. But here sложно means something more like, it's not so much that it's difficult to physically a physical exertion, but it's complicated. Mentally it's difficult to understand. So here she's saying, in English you'd probably still say something like, wow, this is so difficult. But here sложно means not difficult in a physical sense, but more in a conceptual sense. She doesn't get it. She doesn't understand what's going on with her computer.
Это не сложно, просто надо уметь работать на компьютере.
I think I just realized I forgot to mention делается is also, it has sia on the end, obviously. So here it's also passive in the sense of like how difficult it is to do this. Делается means, passively saying like how difficult it is for this to be done. Okay, so the other woman says, это не сложно, it's not difficult, it's not complicated, просто надо уметь работать на компьютере. You just need to know how to work on the computer. And again, уметь means know how in the sense of, in the sense of knowing how to do something, as contrasted with moch. Moch means it's physically possible. Umetь means to have the knowledge necessary to do something. So she's saying, you need to know how to work on the computer.
Тебе не сложно.
For you, it's not difficult.
А у меня не получается научиться.
But for me, Um, um, Не получается научиться. I can't, basically she's saying I can't learn. I can't learn how to do it.
Хочешь, я тебя научу пользоваться этой программой?
So, хочешь, do you want? Что я тебе научу? Do you want that I teach you пользоваться этой программой? So, do you want me to teach you how to use? Пользоваться basically means, yeah, again, sia on the end. So it's like how is used. So in English, you'd probably say, do you want me to teach you how to use this program? But here in the passive voice, it's more like, do you want me to show you how this program is used? How is used this program?
Конечно, хочу. Спасибо тебе.
Of course I want. Thank you. You can also just say, people often say spasiba, but people often add тебе, or in a formal situation, you say вам, spasiba вам, meaning like thank you to you. I give my thanks to you. Okay, and here we go. Now here we have two people talking on the metro, which is in English called a subway or an underground. And this is where we're going to hear that phrase that I mentioned. Осторожно, двери закрываются.
Осторожно, двери закрываются. Следующая станция Октябрьская.
Это машинист говорит?
Нет, это записывается в студии и потом только повторяется на каждой станции.
Интересно, а если радио сломается?
Ну тогда это будет говорить машинист.
О, смотри, двери уже открылись. Мы выходим?
Да, это наша станция.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start at the beginning. Actually, I'll go ahead and put in the first word here, because these three words, these are arguably the most familiar phrase in everyday Russian life. Having lived in Russia, I can say this phrase is probably the one phrase that I heard more than any other by far in my everyday life in Russia.
Осторожно, двери закрываются.
Осторожно, двери закрываются. Be careful, the doors are closing. Or, well, in English you'd say the doors are closing, but here, закрываются, because it's passive, it's more like the doors are being closed. You could also say the doors are closing themselves, reflexive, I guess. Yeah, it's a matter of perspective. Obviously the doors don't close themselves. They're closed by those mechanical arms that slide to move the doors closed. So it's kind of a matter of perspective. But basically, yeah, the doors are being closed. So осторожно is a general word just meaning caution, watch out, be careful. And yeah, caution, doors are being closed. And then the voice says...
Следующая станция Октябрьская.
Oktyabrskaya is a station on the Moscow metro, so I'm going to assume that the setting for this dialogue is in Moscow, in the Moscow metro. But this exact same phrase, осторожно, двери закрываются, is also used in the St. Petersburg metro. So in both cities, you will hear this phrase used at every single station. At every station, as the doors are closing, there's this automated voice that says, watch out, the doors are closing.
Это машинист говорит?
So the guy asks, is that the machinist speaking? Here, machinist means the train driver. In Russian, machinist is a very specific word meaning the person who drives a train. Like in English, you'd say train engineer probably. Usually you call them an engineer in English. But machinist is, in Russian, the same thing. Machinist in Russian is the person who drives the train. I actually don't know. I looked this up and then I forgot. What do you call a machine? So in English, a machinist usually means somebody who works with metal foundry machines. So a person who works with, for example, a lathe or a drill, or other types of machines which cut or grind or shape metal. Not wood or other materials like that. I mean, somebody who works with wood is specifically a carpenter. A machinist is very specifically somebody who works with metal shaping machines. And I remember looking it up, and I forget now what the Russian word for that is. Wiktionary gives me the Russian word as mechanik, but I don't think that's it. Yeah, you wouldn't say. I mean, mechanic is obviously mechanic. That's not the same thing. A mechanic is somebody who repairs broken machines, typically cars, but could also be other things. But a machinist is not a fixer. A machinist is a manufacturer. I think. Yeah, here we go. I think tocar. Let me show you on this screen here. So if we go back here, I'm going to look up, in English, I'm going to look up machinist. And Wiktionary gives you translations for things. Yeah, see here, the Russian translation is mechanik. But if we actually click on that, yeah, it comes back to the English translation of mechanic. That is not it's not the same thing. Let me go then to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia gives an alternate translation. So under Wikipedia, I'm going to look for machinist. And yeah, obviously we're not talking about the movie with, that was Christian Bale, wasn't it? That's something completely different. Well, it is a movie about a machinist, but that's not what we're looking for here. So yeah, this is a machinist. This is somebody manufacturing, okay, in this case, manufacturing a helicopter part. But the Russian translation here on the left side, see, is tokar, or tokar. Sorry, the emphasis is on the O. So tokar. And I think this is closer to what they are looking for. I think this is actually, yeah, this is definitely more in line with what we mean when we say machinist in English. I actually don't know what this, I mean, here it just says female tokar in the year 1940 in the USA, so I don't know exactly what she's doing, but presumably she's also a machinist. So anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but I just want to emphasize a machinist in Russian is not a machinist in English. They're completely different things. A machinist in English is a tokar. A machinist in Russian is a train driver or train engineer.
Нет, это записывается в студии, и потом только повторяется на каждой станции.
Okay, this woman speaks really fast. Good gosh, man, take less coffee. Okay, but what she said was... So she says, no, it's not the machinist or the engineer talking. Это записывается в студии. Studio means studio, so it's recorded in a studio. Записывается means, yeah, again, it's passive voice, right? Because of the sia on the end. So it means it is recorded. The voice is recorded in a studio. И потом только... повторяется, and then is repeated на каждой станции, at every station. So it is recorded, and then it is repeated at every station. Again, these are both passive verbs. The voice audio is not performing the verb, it is being acted on by the verb. It is recorded, it is played, or it is repeated. So that's why these are passive.
Интересно, а если радио сломается?
Okay. Interesting. And if the radio breaks, slomается is, again, like, I don't know if this is interpreted as breaks itself or becomes broken, or, gets broken. I guess both of those are possible. So he's saying, what happens if the radio breaks? Like if the PA system, if the announcement system breaks?
Ну тогда это будет говорить машинист.
Well, then it would be the engineer speaking. Then it would be the machinist speaking.
О, смотри, двери уже открылись. Мы выходим?
Да. Да, это наша станция.
Yeah, okay. So, boy, that woman talks fast. I didn't even have time to pause. So then the guy says, oh, look, the doors are already opening. Do we get out? Мы выходим. Do we get out or are we getting out? Открылись, I think, is also the passive form of open. So now the doors are already opening or being opened. And then she says, yes, this is our station. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear. And then here, again, as usual, we have a more lengthy explanation. So yeah. And notice again that these are in the instrumental case. So я пишу письмо. Письмо пишется мной, the instrumental form of me. Мы смотрим дом, or not смотрим, строим. We are building the house. Мы строим дом. We are building the house. Дом строится нами. The house is being built through us or via us, by means of us. So нами, instrumental case. And они покупают машину. Машина покупается ими. And if we go and take a look here, yeah, much depends on the situation. In general, linguists advise against the passive case when possible. Generally, they will say that the passive voice is linguistically undesirable and to be avoided if possible. But there are situations where it's fairly consistently used. An example is, at least in English, an example is, I was born in, for example, in New York. People very rarely say, my mother gave birth to me. Of course, you can say that. Of course, it's true. It's biologically true. But nobody says, yes, my mother gave birth to me. People just say, I was born. Another example, which hopefully is not an example in everyday life for most people, is if somebody becomes arrested, of course it's perfectly correct to say that somebody is being arrested by the police, or somebody was arrested by the police, or the police. You can say the police arrested somebody, but it's more common to say somebody was arrested. Did he get arrested? Yes, he was arrested. You don't say the police arrested him. You say, yes, he was arrested. That's a common example where you typically say things in the passive voice in English. So there are some fairly fixed phrases where the passive voice is just very standard. So yeah, there's not a lot of detail here, actually. This is a pretty short explanation. But yeah, yeah, I mean, that's basically it. So yeah, I think this lesson is fairly short, actually. It's pretty straightforward. So what we have now is 10 sentences, and we need to just figure out whether the sentence is in the active or the passive voice. Pretty straightforward, right? So let's see. The first one, the example, эта машина не ломается. This car. What is ломается, actually? I don't know this word. Let me quickly check. I should have looked that one up, but I didn't. Эта машина не ломается. Okay, so ломается is like break or break down. So I guess it means this car isn't breaking down, or didn't break down, or doesn't break down. So and it says that's in the active voice, which I guess makes sense because, yeah, you're not saying the car is being broken. The car is not breaking. So that's something the car is actively doing. If the car is breaking, then technically, at least linguistically, the car is doing something. Let's see how we do for the rest. Эта симфония играется музыкантом уже 10 лет. So this symphony, right, is played or has been played by musicians for already 10 years. So this is obviously passive. This is very clearly passive because the symphony doesn't do anything. The symphony is not a living thing that has any agency to do anything. The symphony is played by musicians and has been played by them for 10 years. So that's very clearly passive. Фильм смотрится трудно. Он очень длинный. This is an interesting sentence. The film watches itself difficultly. I mean, obviously, yeah. Okay, it's not watches itself. It's is watched. It's passive. So, yeah, I mean, that's obviously, it makes no sense to say the film watches itself. That's completely absurd. Maybe in some sort of fantasy story where films are sentient enough to watch themselves, but let's not get too carried away with fantasy. Let's stay in real life here. So obviously it's a passive sentence. They're not saying the film watches itself, but watching the film, the process of watching the film is difficult. Он очень длинный. The film is very long. He is very long, and that's why it's difficult to watch it. На площади образовалась большая пробка. So on the площадь, on the square or plaza, образовалась, built or formed, большая пробка, a big traffic jam. Okay, so this is an interesting question because you could see it either way. If you have a traffic jam, you can say in English, a traffic jam forms as if the traffic jam is some sort of sentient thing with its own agency to form itself. But of course, the traffic jam doesn't form itself. The traffic jam is formed by all the people there. All the people who are on the street or on the plaza or wherever, they make the traffic jam. And so in a sense, you could say a traffic jam is formed passively because it has no ability to do anything on its own power. However, I believe that what they're looking for here is active. They're saying that, as you would say in English, you wouldn't really say in English a traffic jam was formed. You just say a traffic jam formed, as if the jam formed itself, as if the jam did the forming, even though it didn't, obviously, but linguistically we say that. Эта книга писалась 6 лет, автору было нелегко. So this book was written in 6 years. The authorship was not easy. Or maybe the author was not easy. I'm not sure how to interpret that sentence there. But yeah, so obviously, that's very obviously passive. The book was written over a period of 6 years. Obviously, the book didn't write itself. The book was written. It's very clearly passive. Наша встреча началась на час позже из-за пробок. So, наша встреча, our meeting, началась, began, на час позже, an hour late, из-за пробок, because of traffic jam. Again, we have traffic jams. So, again, our meeting began is the verb here. The meeting doesn't start itself. The meeting is started by other people. The meeting isn't some kind of self-behaving, self-acting object that can start itself. So in a sense, you would say the meeting was begun by other people. But again, linguistically, you don't say the meeting was started. You say the meeting started. So linguistically, you use the active voice. Same in Russian. Когда конференция закончилась, все пошли на ужин. So, when the conference ended, закончилась, when the conference ended, everyone went to dinner. So here again, just as we said, when the meeting started, here we say when the meeting ended, or when the conference ended. So again, same thing. The conference obviously doesn't have any ability to make its own decisions. The conference was ended by people, but linguistically you say the conference ended. That's active voice. So there you go. Не все вещи в мире покупаются и продаются. So not all things in the world are bought and sold. So this is pretty clearly passive voice. The things are not buying or selling, they're being bought and sold. So Oh, excuse me. Okay, so that's obviously passive voice. The things are being bought and sold. They're not buying and selling. So stuff is bought and sold, but not everything in the world is bought and sold. Passive voice. Квартира сдается хозяином на год. So the квартира is an apartment. So the apartment сдается хозяином на год. So the apartment is rented or leased out by the owner for a year or by the year. So obviously this is also passive. The apartment doesn't rent itself or lease itself. The apartment is being rented or leased out or rented out. So that's passive voice. Фильм снимается невестным режиссером. So the film is filmed or shot by a famous director. Regisseur is director. So obviously, yeah, here the film doesn't film itself. The film is filmed. And so that's obviously passive voice. And finally, все хорошо, что хорошо кончается. Which is a fairly literal translation of the common English phrase, all's well that ends well. All is good that good ends. So yeah, and here, things end themselves, and that's why it's sia on the end. But yeah, you don't say things are ended, you say things end. Active voice. So here, things actively end themselves. And I appear to have made a mistake. It does not like something that I said here. So let's see. Let's look at the second one. Let's see. So the second one is actually passive voice. Okay, I see. So in the second sentence, the point is not that the film is doing anything. They're saying that watching the film is difficult. Okay. That's a bit... it's interesting because that is a sentence without a subject. In English, you could also say watching the film is difficult. That's a sentence without a subject because you're not saying who is watching the film. You're just saying the film is difficult to watch. And so it sounds passive to me. Watching the film sounds passive to me. But at least in Russian, it appears to be active. So that's actually an active voice in Russian, apparently, according to my notes. Okay, fine. All right, so that was a mistake. But it still doesn't like my answers. So what else did I do wrong? Apparently 7 is also active. Did that? Okay, that did it. Okay, so 7 is also active. Не все вещи в мире покупаются и продаются. Okay, so that's interesting. At least in English, the most natural way to phrase this sentence is not everything in this world is bought and sold. And so again, that's a sentence without a subject because you're not saying who is buying the things. You're just saying the things are bought and sold or not bought and sold. And so that sounds very passive to me, but apparently in Russian that counts as an active voice sentence. Okay. All right, fair enough. So that's, I don't know why, but that there you go. These are the answers to that exercise. Okay, and here we have already the last exercise in the lesson. This is a fairly short lesson. We just need to fill in these words for 10 sentences. So let's go. First one. Он something дверь и пошел на работу. Now, just in case you're not sure what verb to put in, they helpfully put here not only the infinitive form of the verb, in this case, zakrit, but also the reflexive form with sia on the end, so zakritsya. So that's nice, but here we don't need zakritsya because this is active voice. He closed the door. So it's not the door was closed, but he closed the door. So this is active voice. And passive tense of zakrit or not passive, past, sorry. Not passive, past tense of zakrit for a masculine actor or subject, in this case, is zakril. Он закрыл дверь и пошел на работу. He closed the door and walked to work, or went to work. Дверь неожиданно something, а ключи осталась в квартире. Okay, so закрыт. So неожиданно means like suddenly. So the door suddenly closed, but the keys remained in the apartment. So I guess this person accidentally locked themselves out because the door closed, but the keys were still in the apartment. So this is also it's now interesting. Is this active or passive? Looks like they are having us use the word закрылась. And I'm just going to check this on Wiktionary quickly just to see. I believe this is then the закрылась. It didn't find it, but if you say full text search, it'll probably find it under the. No? That's interesting. It doesn't have this word at all. That is curious. Did I spell it right? Oh, well, that's the reason why. Instead of a K, I put a, whoops, now I have the wrong keyboard layout here. There we go. Закрылась. There we go. That's the reason why it didn't find it. Let's try that again, shall we? Sorry, that was my mistake. Закрылась. There we go. Okay, it doesn't seem to be. Let's see. Закрыть. So it's a form of закрыться. Yeah, so it's passive. Okay, yeah, so it could be to close, to shut, or it could be passive of закрыть, to close. So it's really not clear which voice this is in. This could mean actively the door closed itself, or it could mean passively the door was closed. I think both interpretations are possible. So, yeah, I'm not sure which one is intended here, but I think both are correct. So, either way, this should be the right answer. Okay. Если вы хотите something окно, посмотри, пожалуйста, не идет ли дождь. So, if you want to открыть, if you want to open the window, look please that that it's not raining. Не идет ли дождь. So not running is rain, or not going is rain. So this is pretty obviously active. It's saying if you are opening the window, or if you want to open the window. And actually, we don't even need to conjugate the verb, because хотите here is already conjugated for вы. And so after a conjugated verb, after a conjugated modal verb like this, you use the unconjugated infinitive form of the verb. So we can literally copy and paste that here. Если вы хотите открыть. That's it. Just copy and paste the infinitive form and you're done. Осторожно, двери. Okay, well this is something we saw previously. I could copy and paste it, but let me go ahead and try to type it in here. So it's открываются вовнутрь. Aha, okay. So watch out, the doors open вовнутрь, inward. So I guess the doors don't slide to the side, they open inward. So if you're on the inside, the door will open towards you, so watch out for that. Mama, я хочу познакомить. So познакомить is to introduce. Тебя с моими друзьями. Это Марк, Мария и Михаил. So, Mama, I want to introduce you to my friends. This is Mark, Maria, and Michael. So, and actually, again, because я хочу is already conjugated here, after a modal verb like that, you don't need to conjugate the main verb. You just leave it in the infinitive form. So once again, just copy and paste познакомить. So, Mom, I want to introduce you to my friends, or with my friends in Russian. Okay, pretty easy. Мы с моей женой something в интернете на сайте знакомств. We with my wife. So this, yeah, it's an awkward Russian phrasing. The Russian phrasing literally says we with my wife. We with my wife. But in English, of course, you'd say my wife and I, or I and my wife. Познакомить, so to meet. Okay, so my wife and I meet в интернете. На сайте okay, I guess it's past tense. So my wife and I met on the internet. На сайте знакомств, on a dating website. So, okay, so this is past tense of познакомить. Clearly it's active, I think. Oh, but you use the passive form because I guess you say in Russian we met ourselves. So you say like we met in English you say we met each other, but I guess in Russian it's done reflexively, and so it's kind of like we met ourselves. Okay. So the answer here is познакомились. There, познакомились. So this is past tense because we met on the internet. Not we're meeting on the internet, but we met on the internet. It's plural. It's past tense plural because it's we, so it's more than one person. And then it's using the passive form because it's like we met each other. We met ourselves. So it's actually reflexive form. So we with my wife met in internet on-site dating. My wife and I met on the internet on a dating site. Каждый хочет свою жизнь к лучшему. Изменить means to change. So каждый means like each, but there's no noun here. So I guess it's like in English, everyone. Every person wants to change their life к лучшему, for the better. Everyone wants to change their life for the better. Well, maybe not everyone, but okay, fair enough, probably most people. So, каждый изменить, this is obviously active voice. And again, we don't need to conjugate it because хочет is already conjugated. So хочет is the modal verb here. We just put in the main verb in the infinitive form like that. Done. That was easy. Number 8. Когда я приехал в свой родной город через много лет, я с трудом его узнал. So, sorry, I know my reading, if that was a bit mechanical, I'll try reading that again. Когда я приехал в свой родной город через много лет, я с трудом его узнал. So when I came into, when I arrived in my city of birth or hometown, after many years, I recognized it with difficulty. Так он something, and again, изменить means change, so how he changed, or how it changed, because город is masculine. So the word here is the past tense and reflexive, because it's like the city changed himself or itself. So the city changed itself, and so it's past tense reflexive, or past tense reflexive. And so it is изменился. How he changed himself. Okay. Осенью погода часто something. Менять. Okay, so менять? Is that also change? Let's see. I think that might be also change, but let me just see here. Let me just quickly check. Let me just quickly check on that before I commit to that. All right. There we go. There's Menyat. So Menyat means not to change, but to exchange, to swap something. Okay, I see. Okay. It's interesting because this is actually about the weather. So осенью, which is осень means autumn, осенью means in autumn, and погода is weather, and часто is frequently. So in autumn, the weather frequently, and then in English you'd say changes, but I guess in Russian the weather swaps itself, like exchanges itself. Okay, so what we want here is the reflexive form of this verb because it changes itself. So that is меняется. Утром холодно, днем тепло, вечером снова холодно. So in the morning it's cold, during the day it's warm, and then in the evening, снова, again, холодно, again cold. Okay, and finally, я никогда не менять, again, exchange or swap, деньги на улице, только в банке. Aha, we had a sentence about this in a previous lesson not too long ago. Is this a common thing in Russia? Do people commonly just exchange money on the street? Hey, I've got a pocket full of euro or US dollars. I'll give you some rubles for them. Just, hey, let's just do it right here on Arbatskaya Street or something in the middle of the city. Do people just do this? I don't know. But anyway, okay, so so this person is saying, I never change money outside, only in the bank. But what is the, this is active voice, so you just basically need the, and it's ya, so you just need the simple first person active voice of menyat. And that is men yayu. And there we go. That was, excuse me, that was lesson 57. So I think overall this is a fairly straightforward lesson. The passive voice is often kind of confusing because it's often not used in everyday life. People often don't use the passive voice that much. But the way that you use it in the present tense, note this lesson is in the present tense. Next lesson we'll see in the past tense, but in the present tense, it's fairly straightforward. Again, like I said, if you're saying that something is happening in the passive present tense, you give the object, the thing that it's being done to, you use the reflexive form of the verb with sia on the end, usually, and then you just use the subject. If you're using a subject, then you use the subject in the instrumental form. And that's it. That's pretty straightforward. It's not too bad, I think. Seems reasonable. Okay, this has been lesson 57. Thanks for watching, everyone. Next time we will see how to form passive things in the past tense in Russian. It should be really exciting. I hope I'll see you then, folks. Thanks for watching again, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.